It is good to be with you today and to address you with a sermon that we don't often hear, although we sing Psalm 46 in loose paraphrase every time we sing the song we just sang, A Mighty Fortress. It was really Luther's personalization of that psalm. It embodied his sense of what that meant. I thought it was really appropriate that you had us sing Psalm 46 today, Pastor Roma, primarily because one of the things that Luther used to say to Melanchthon is when they had a troublesome time or they felt particularly assailed, he says, let's sing together Psalm 46 and let the devil do what he may. In other words, for Luther, and probably true in all of the Psalms, Psalm 46 really gets at the heart of the very power of God, the strength of God, his ability to lay all at waste before him. Come behold the works of the Lord. That's one of the phrases that I want to come back to. It's not a refrain that's in this psalm, but for today's purpose, I just want to ask you to come. Well, how do you come? Sometimes we come physically, don't we? We come near, okay? And sometimes it means that we come, if you will, we attend with our hearts. Sometimes it might mean that we specifically put away things that are kind of blocking us from coming. If you will, we remove some of the barriers that have gotten in the way so that we actually can come. So come today. Come and then behold. Look around. See. Be observant in regards to what God is doing, what he's saying, not only today, but what he's saying, what he's doing in your life. Come, behold the works of the Lord. Yeah, the obvious. We have works of nature, we have works of the Spirit, we have works of attention, if you will, but we have the ability to see what does that mean for each of us individually today. Come, behold the works of the Lord. What does that mean for us individually? What does that mean for us together as a family of faith, Resurrection and St. Mark's? What does that mean? Come, behold the works of the Lord. I'd like to read Psalm 46 for you because as we sang it there in the hymnal, there was something important left out. And it may not seem important. We skip past it whenever we see this word and because we don't know what it means. But I'd like to read this for you. God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. Therefore, we will not fear, even if the earth gives way. Though the mountains be moved into the very heart of the sea, though its waters roar and foam, though the mountains tremble at its swelling. Selah. There is a river whose streams make glad the city of God, the holy habitation of the Most High. God is in the midst of her. She shall not be moved. God will help her when morning dawns. The nations rage, the kingdoms totter. He utters his voice. The earth melts. The Lord of hosts is with us. The God of Jacob is our refuge, our fortress. Selah. Come, behold all these works of the Lord, how he has brought desolations on the earth. He makes wars to cease to the very end of the earth. He breaks the bow and he shatters the spear. He burns the chariots with fire. Be still and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the nations. I will be exalted in the earth. The Lord of hosts is with us. The God wrestling with Jacob. He is our fortress. Selah. Now, I took a few liberties with that translation, as you might have noted. But what I didn't take a liberty with, and I just want to drive this point home right at the beginning, is that there are three interludes that are called for when this is sung or read. And they all come with that Selah. Now, I'm not going to pretend that I know what that means any more than anybody else has pretended that they know. But what it does cause us to do, even today, is to take a break. And I would suggest that taking that break means also, come, behold, the works of the Lord. Stop, reflect, watch, consider. Don't be too quick to get to the end. Come, behold the works of the Lord. Selah. Psalm 46 is a verse that, or chapter that I grew up as a little boy learning and reciting in our family devotions. When I was a really little boy, from earliest memory, we did Psalm 23. At some point, Dad must have decided that we knew Psalm 23 well enough, and so we switched to Psalm 46. And then we, later on, after I left home, I understand that they switched to Psalm 119, one of the specific sections. I believe it was the Resh section. They switched to that, and there were different parts that my family recited together. And so these words, at least in, I'll give my age away, in the RSV version, are something that I remember from childhood. And I remember reflecting upon and thinking about. And we would just say them, but there were times, even as a 10-year-old, an 11-year-old, a 12-year-old, it's kind of like, what does this mean? What is this all about? Well, I just want to guide you through in the next 10 minutes or so. I just want to spend some time kind of thinking through the three distinct parts here. In the beginning, those first three verses, those verses that say God is He's our fortress, He's our refuge and strength, He's our stronghold, okay? And He's always available in times of trouble. And then he goes on to say, what are the times of trouble? He describes them. They are the chaos of our natural world. Those are some of the times of trouble we have, aren't they? When the world around us, our natural world, not what humanity does to it, but our natural world, it just goes into chaos. And it just throws us completely athither, doesn't it? Now, we have experienced that in spades, and especially in the last 5 or 6 years here in California, haven't we? Every time a new fire season comes, it seems to be greater than the last. Now, I've lived here for 25 years now, and we always have a fire season. We always have. But it's not been a fire season like we've experienced the last 5 or 6, a fire season that is regularly, you can plan on it. It is threatening places where our population dwells. And it is also threatening areas all over and burning record numbers of acreage, right? Square miles and upon square miles of the earth. And we know that some of this has happened simply because the forest has not been tended very well. But we also know that this is part of the imperfection of creation. The forest would not have to be tended in the same way if there was not that imperfection of creation that causes untimely death of forest trees. What is the imperfection of creation? How did God create this world to begin with? Was it a place of chaos and disorder? No. It was a place of order. See, the creation itself, Paul says in Romans, is groaning for its restoration. See, creation itself, the world we live in, all of these things, power of the tsunami, the strength of a wildfire, the terror of it, the hurricanes, I've been out in the Mediterranean Sea and witnessed a big tornado. They have another name for it out there, a cyclone, just off the shore of Greece. And so I've seen that and seen all of this power and the terror. Seen also the bubbling of volcanoes. I've not been there as one exploded, but I have seen the aftermath of it. Okay? All of this, while it is a creative force in some ways and a cleansing force, you see, because God can work all things according to his good, including the terrors of nature, is part of the chaotic imperfection of this world, over which you have a God, and I have a God who is powerful over it. He's not helpless before it. He is our refuge, our strong place, and our sure defense. And when we think about that, and we think about the trauma and terror that some of these things cause, it becomes especially important because so much of our life is built upon how we can manage the world around us, right? What is the government going to do about this? Where are they going to send the firefighters? How come the firefighters came to this place but not to that place? Why is it that they couldn't contain this fire when they seem to be right on another fire? There's all kinds of things where we are frustrated at our inability or our seemingly unwillingness to manage the chaos of the world. Whenever I start to believe that I have some kind of control, or at least some kind of ability to manage well the forces of nature, I go out body surfing. You know why I do that? Because sooner or later, I'm just going to get slammed by a wave. And to a certain degree, there's a little bit of comfort in that. I'm messing with some powerful forces here. I'm messing with some powerful forces. And in the midst of this first stanza, I just want to remind you that God is our refuge and strength in the midst of the chaotic, uncontrolled forces of which we have to acknowledge we have no hope of managing personally or as a society. He is our refuge and strength. Though the mountains be moved into the heart of the sea, though its waters roar and foam, though the mountains tremble at its swelling, he is our refuge and strength. Come behold the works of the Lord. Selah. Don't move on too quick. Don't think that this is something that we can just skip past because we get this. You may one day be in the midst of an earthquake again. You may one day find yourself with a wildfire just north of the road that you're driving on. You may see that there is a tornado on the horizon because you were foolish enough to visit the Midwest during tornado season. Come behold the works of the Lord. He is our refuge and strength. He is about the things that last, not just the physical chaos of today. Selah. The second stanza, I kind of love. I'd like to spend a whole lot of time on it, so to keep myself under control, I'm just going to spend about 90 seconds. Because there's a really important thing. Did you see the waters roaring and foaming and the chaos of creation in the first three verses? Well, right away, what does the writer of the Psalms do? He takes that and he makes it, rather than chaos and fear, he reminds us that water is primarily God's way of bringing refreshment. And so what does he say? In Psalm 46, right at the beginning, he says, there is a river whose streams make glad the city of God. Now, when you hear that in the Old Testament, you're thinking Jerusalem, City of God? Zion? Maybe. But in reality, I believe, and most commentators who know what they're talking about, who agree with me, okay, I'm sorry to say that. I really am not that much of a scholar to claim such a thing. But I think there's a good reason to believe City of God is not just about Jerusalem. Jerusalem's just a type of that. It's just the first installment payment. See, City of God is wherever the Most High dwells. City of God, how did he dwell in Jerusalem? Well, he dwelt in the temple. And the physical presence where he showed himself to dwell was on the mercy seat, the very Ark of the Covenant, with the cherubims 15 feet tall attending him and overstretching their wings there in the Holy of Holies. Gold-covered cherubim. It was a magnificent sight which was not able to be seen by the majority of the populace, only the attending priest on certain days. And yet it was to signify, all the people knew what was behind that curtain. It was described to them in detail. And yet at the same time, this was a holy, set-apart place where God had said, yes, I will put my presence here. What's a holy, set-apart place today? Well, we like to say our churches, anytime we meet for worship, are divine service. But in reality, that's a poor imitation of what this actually means. The very presence of God, the city of God, is where he has placed his spirit and placed his might, and he's placed that wherever what? 2 or 3 are gathered together in his name. I know you say, well, that's not a very glorious place. It's the most glorious place. It's the actual church, the called out ones, the people of God. Reflect on that for a little bit. And what's the picture? There is a river. There's a river that flows in the midst of it, bringing refreshment. You may or may not know this, but there is a river that flows out of the threshold of the temple in the book of Ezekiel at the end of it, as the temple rebuilt is being discussed and talked about. There's a river that flows from the threshold. That's a river of refreshment. There is a river in Revelation 22. It's the river of life. See, this refreshment that God brings is so important to the Holy Scriptures and what it means. Come behold the works of the Lord. And then at the end of this particular stanza, it says, the Lord of hosts, Yahweh Sabaoth. The Lord, the great I am of the heavenly hosts. Some people would say the heavenly armies. Yahweh Sabaoth. He is with us. The God of Jacob, he's renamed here now, more personally. The God of Jacob. What does that mean? I use that wrestling God of Jacob there at the end of this when I read it. Why did I do that? Well, that's from Eugene Peterson. Eugene Peterson, who wrote a translation, if you will, a paraphrase of Scripture called The Message. The wrestling God. But see, the reason that we say that the God of Jacob, the reason that that's there is because it's personal. God specifically came to Jacob a number of different times. He presented himself to him. And Jacob was no worthy guy. You know his stories? He was a liar. He was a deceiver. Pardon me, mothers, he was a mama's boy. He wasn't afraid to take from his brother to get what he wanted. He wasn't so proud that he didn't put his children in front of him when there was a chance that maybe his company would be attacked, and thought, well, perhaps Esau will have mercy on me because all of my children, my wives are out there in front. What kind of scaredy cat is this? And yet at the same time, he is the God of Jacob. Why? Because he decided to be. Because he put his name upon him. See, this is the God that even when the nations rage and the kingdoms totter, when he utters his voice, when he speaks, he brings it all to a stop. That's the God you worship. Come behold the works of the Lord. Are you starting to understand why Martin Luther said to his good buddy Philip, we're having a really hard day and the oppression looks like coming from right and left. Let's sing Psalm 46 together and let the devil do what he may. We have to remember who we serve. Selah. Now this is the section that most of you know really well. Be still and know that I am God. Where does it come? It comes after these words, interestingly enough, which are right in the third stanza. He makes wars to cease to the end of the earth. He breaks the bow and shatters the spear. He burns the chariots with fire. Be still and know that I am God. One of the translations for this, and it's not a bad translation at all from the Hebrew word, says, stop fighting for a moment. What does that mean? Well, we got that picture of warfare right before, right? And then there's the be still, stop fighting. I lay that before you rather than just be still because you know the words be still. You've heard that before. I want you to consider this today. What are you fighting? What are you fighting in your life? What are you warring against? What won't you let go of? What do you have to try to control in and of yourself? Stop fighting for a moment. Know that he, hear them from the scriptures itself, he says, I am God. I am Yahweh, the Lord of hosts, the God of armies. Be still. Know that I am God. Stop fighting. I will be exalted among the nations. I will be exalted in the hosts, in the earth. And then one more time. Yahweh Sabaoth, the Lord, the great I am, the God of hosts, the God of armies. He is with us. Notice here in Psalm 46, the Good Shepherd is with you. See, that is true about God our Father, isn't it? He is a good shepherd. What's also true about him at the same time is he is the great I am, the Lord of hosts, the God of armies. And he is the one that says, be still, stop, take time, come, behold the works of the Lord. Selah. Pause for a moment. The God of Jacob is our fortress. The wrestling God of Jacob. Luther plunged right into this in a mighty fortress. He knew we were not just talking in a mighty fortress in Psalm 46 about the God Yahweh. We were talking about all the manifestations of the God Yahweh, the great I am that says I am the good shepherd, the I am that says I am the water of life, the I am that says I am the bread of life, the I am that says I am the way, the truth, and the life. Who is that? I can wait all day, St. Mark's and resurrection. Who is that? Who am I talking about? It's not Old Testament. Who is it? It's Jesus. See, Luther knew that. And I have to bring that home to you today too. The God of Jacob, the face-to-face God, is who? It's Jesus. On that altar, and on your altar at resurrection, right here before us today, is our face-to-face God. That's not our God. These are symbols that he has said, use these so that I, through my word and my promises, might be physical among you. Face to face, the very God of Jacob. Wrestle with me, confess. Hear my words of forgiveness. Hear my words of hope. Stop fighting. Come, behold the works of the Lord. Selah. In Jesus' name.